But let's start with the news out of Germany from over the weekend, shall we? Heard now multiple reports linking Pellegrino Matarazzo, a frequent Football America's guest. We should say Pellegrino Matarazzo, with the vacant U.S. job. The New Jersey native is currently at Hoffenheim, who he qualified for European competition by finishing 7th in the Bundesliga last season. Some conflicting reports here. Kicker saying Matarazzo's been offered the job, but is still undecided. Bild is claiming that Matarazzo told Hoffenheim he wants to leave to take the U.S. job. Now, Hoffenheim, of course, not Matarazzo's first Bundesliga managerial post. He was at Stuttgart for 3 years, where he got them promoted after taking over midway through the 2019-2020 season. For those who don't know his bio, he did play college soccer here in the United States, grew up in New Jersey, played at Columbia University, where I know you'll love this. He got a degree in applied mathematics. How about that for some college soccer? Pellegrino Matarazzo linked to the U.S. job.
You like them apples, right? All right.
All right, so for more on this, let's welcome into the show our good friend and colleague, Derek Rae. You hear him all the time on ESPN+, the voice of the Bundesliga. Derek, first let's start with where you are, because I know you're gallivanting about the States, correct, on part of this summer soccer tour?
Yes, hi, Sebby. Hi, Herc. I'm actually in a city I've never visited before, Charlotte, North Carolina, where it's about to rain, but dry for now, thankfully.
A city that Derek Rae has not visited before. I got to think that's a pretty short list. So he's in there in Charlotte, down in the Carolinas. Of course, we got a lot of games on ESPN. We'll highlight those a little bit later here in the show. Derek, before we get kind of into the opinion, I do want your opinion on Matarazzo as a manager. I'm curious first on the latest that you're hearing out of the German press around this story, and also if you can shine some light on what's happening right now at Hoffenheim, because it sounds like there's been a little bit of a front office shakeup that might impact Matarazzo's standing at the club.
Yeah, let me deal with that second part of the question first. And this has been going on for a while at Hoffenheim. There's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of maneuvering, let's say, off the pitch. And the big decision that was taken just very recently, a few days ago, was to say goodbye to Alexander Rosen, the longtime director of football, chief sporting director, who had a good relationship with Pellegrino Matarazzo. So he's no longer there, and it seems to have thrown the club into utter confusion. So this story broke, and you mentioned it, Bild-Zeitung, Sportbild, they were the first to report. Information was that Pellegrino Matarazzo, the coach of Hoffenheim, was very interested in the USA job and had, if not been offered it, had been seen as one of the chief candidates for that vacant post. But Kicker came in and then said, no, we've actually spoken to Pellegrino Matarazzo, and I had a direct quote from him. And he said, I have never said that I want to leave our club. So he didn't specifically mention the USA, but he said, I don't want to leave Hoffenheim. And, you know, he is very close to many of the people who've been in high places there. The issue really is, where is the club going? Is it going to be Frank Kramer who comes in and makes all the sporting decisions? And will there be support there for Pellegrino Matarazzo? He does have support from the players. Andrej Kramaric, probably the most high-profile player, went on Instagram and immediately said that we very much believe in Pellegrino Matarazzo, and if anybody says otherwise, it's a lie. So it's an ongoing situation, and clearly that there was contact from US Soccer, but we don't quite know to what extent and what it all means.
There it is. To what extent and what it all means. And listen, if you're Matt Crocker, you absolutely have to talk to Pellegrino Matarazzo. Yeah. You've got to go where no other sporting director has gone. You got to interview these. I'm old enough to remember when Greg Berhalter was hired, they interviewed, what, 3? What was it, Seb? 2 or 3 max? Yeah. And now you have a coach, an American coach, who checks a lot of boxes, who's in the Bundesliga and is doing well. But here's the thing.
Yeah, I think 100%. I think that's absolutely the case, that it would have been remiss if they hadn't spoken to Pellegrino Matarazzo. What I wanted to say about him, though, is, and I know that you've spoken to him on the show, and I have as well independently, and I think what people don't quite get about Pellegrino Matarazzo is he is very much someone who is proud of his multiple identities. And we're talking a lot about that at the moment, aren't we, in society at large? And Pellegrino Matarazzo will be the first to tell you that, on the one hand, he feels quite Italian because his parents were immigrants from Italy. He grew up in an Italian household that happened to be in New Jersey, but very Italian, and Italian was spoken at home. So yeah, he has the American background as well, because he grew up, his formative years were spent in the USA. But I think what people sometimes forget when they look sort of peripherally at Pellegrino Matarazzo is he has lived a German life for a couple of decades. He went starter, nobody helped him, he had no system backing him. I always think that should actually make him more attractive to American fans, because he didn't have a helping hand at all. He did it from the ground up. He played there on a semi-professional basis. He did his coaching badges, and he did it all on merit. But part of that story as well, and I think this is important, is he's married to a German. His children are German. German is spoken in the house pretty much all the time. So similar to his upbringing in New Jersey when Italian was spoken. And, you know, I've interviewed him before, and he has actually, during the interview, used German words and asked me to clarify for him what the English word is for that sometimes complex German word. That's how immersed he is in the German world. Now, I think you can look at all these things and actually view them as a positive, because what we're really saying is Pellegrino Matarazzo is not your average American coach. He's seasoned. He's a bit of a polyglot in terms of, you know, his cultural backgrounds, whether it's with Italy, whether it's with Germany, but he has this American connection as well. So I've always thought he should be very intriguing, and I've always thought he should be much more in the conversation in terms of, you know, who is the best American coach out there.
Yeah, listen, Pellegrino's got a great story. During that coaching badges, when he did his course, he was actually Julian Nagelsmann's roommate during that whole session. So he's got a very compelling and interesting story. Here's the thing. There is no feasible way in my mind that U.S. Soccer has him down as a finalist or has him down as the man. And the reason I say this is because he's of the unknown. And I don't think U.S. Soccer will do that unless he's a massive, massive name. And Pellegrino's not. He ticks a lot of boxes, and I love what he's about. And that could be maybe what down the road you just need. You absolutely need that. But I don't think they'll allow that to happen. He's a guy that has no international experience, zero experience. And for the little experience he has at the coaching level internationally, which is none, he's got, 5 seasons in Bundesliga. And it is the Bundesliga, and you have to respect it. And I love his journey. But I don't think there's any way U.S. Soccer is making him the U.S. men's national team manager. There's a few boxes he's not ticking. And I think this is a smoke and mirrors type of thing where they're making us look one way while they go another.
Derek, from a footballing perspective, what's your opinion of him as a manager, and what's the consensus opinion over there in the German press of him as a manager? Is he highly respected for what he's done, first at Stuttgart and now obviously at Hoffenheim?
Very highly respected. I was talking to Thomas Hitzelsberger recently, who was part of the team at Stuttgart to bring him on board. And yeah, he will tell you that he was an excellent coach there when they brought him in. When they brought him in, they were in the second division, and the mandate was to get them promoted. And he was successful on that front. And what I like about him is that his football is quite flexible. It's not one style of football. He's a bit of a pragmatist. He does like the transitional game, which is pretty prevalent, as you know, in Germany. But he can play in other ways as well and get players to perform in other ways. So, yeah, I think if you ask most people, whether it's media colleagues or fans, if you bring up the name Pellegrino Matarazzo, they would say, yeah, good coach. He's done well. With Stuttgart, didn't end so well, but we know that's the life cycle of any coach. It doesn't always go smoothly. But he was the longest serving coach there for quite a bit of time, going back about 15 years or so, if you look at the totality of his time there. And it was a natural that Hoffenheim picked him up because he had previously been the assistant. Mentioned Julian Nagelsmann. He'd worked with him, he'd worked with others, and he kept the family home there. And this is the other thing that I think we do have to talk about is, you know, people sort of discuss this USA job as though everybody might want it, or somebody like Pellegrino Matarazzo might want it. I'm not entirely sure that it would be top of his list in terms of what he wants to do. I think if he were available, if he didn't have a club job, that's a different story. But he has a club job that he quite likes. And as I said, he's married to the area, the Kraichgau region of Germany. It's very hilly. It's got woods. It's quite secluded. And it's quite popular with people in football with young families. You can sort of get on with your life there and have a very nice life. And yeah, there's confusion at Hoffenheim. That's the great unknown at the moment. But, you know, when I spoke to him about potentially moving back to the USA at some point in my interview with him about 3 years ago, he said, well, yeah, it would be interesting, maybe. You never know what the future holds. But he said at that point, it would probably have to be the New York area, or New Jersey area for me, because that's where his connections are. That's where his family is. So I think distinct from maybe somebody who, let's say, had come through the USA system, had played in MLS, had been a product of MLS, who had gone to Europe and then maybe viewed a job like this as nirvana, I'm not sure that Pellegrino Matarazzo would think coaching the USA is absolutely the ultimate and what he's been preparing for all his life. It's not to say that he would, you know, turn it down should it come his way, but I think he does have other considerations, and I think it's important to make note of those.
I think it was last year when we had him on the show, because we've had him on, Herc, a few times, both when he was at Stuttgart and I think last year when he was at Hoffenheim. We asked him about it directly, and he definitely seemed to be a guy who was interested. He also confirmed to us that during the conversations that eventually led to Greg Berhalter getting rehired, he got a call at that time from U.S. Soccer. He didn't say it was a very expansive call, maybe a little shorter call than he would have liked, but there was at least at that point some interest from U.S. Soccer. So it makes sense logically, at least, that they would maybe go back to that well for a chat, if not to hire him. I have to say to both of you, I very much like his candidacy. I like what Derek points out. I love the fact that he is not of the American soccer system. So I feel like he would have all of the benefits of an insider. He can relate to the American player. He can certainly relate to the guys who are trying to ply their way over in Europe and maybe have that badge of an American that sometimes helps, sometimes hurts. He can relate to them for that. I think that's extremely valuable. But he's also, and Herc, I know you picked up on this in the interviews that we've done with him, he does not feel like a guy who is remembered here in American soccer. He feels almost like a forgotten character. So he does feel like an outsider. And I think given his Bundesliga perspective, he could give that healthy outside perspective that's needed. There's two things that I think we have to raise as kind of red flags. Matt Crocker mentioned the term serial winner in terms of the guys that he was looking for. Now, you could say Pellegrino Matarazzo is a serial achiever, but I don't think you can call him a serial winner. The other thing that for me is a big concern that he doesn't have on his resume is international experience. And I talked about this with the guys on the ESPN FC set a couple days ago, and both Shaka and Stevie kind of shot it down as if it was not that big of a deal. But I think the fact that he doesn't have international experience, to me, is the one glaring red flag, Herc. It's the one big worry. Am I off on that?
I don't think you're off. Listen, Pellegrino is a wonderful coach, but this smells very fishy to me. And if you're asking me if my spidey senses are telling me this is the guy they're going with, I don't think that's it. I think this is more smoke and mirrors. They want serial winner. They've mentioned legacy coach. They want somebody who knows the game in the United States. They want somebody that's internationally known. They would love a big name. Pellegrino's a lot of things, but he doesn't check off a lot of those boxes. So I hope Pellegrino is off and well with Hoffenheim, because I think he's doing very well there. But this isn't something that I think is realistic for him. Though I would love a shakeup. I would love somebody from the outside who is not part of this American soccer culture, Major League Soccer culture world to come in and really put his own imprint on this. Do I think it'll happen? No. I think Matt Crocker is going to go somewhere in between. I think Matt Crocker's got his guy. I really do. I think Matt Crocker has his guy, and these are all optics.
Who do you think it is, Herc? Do you think he's got his guy?
I think it's Patrick Vieira.
Ooh, okay. Hey, Derek, what do you think about the lack of international experience on Matarazzo's resume? Big deal or no?
To me, it's not a big deal at all because I think about the number of really good coaches. You know, when we cover tournaments like the Euros, for example, we come across coaches who are international specialists. Now, Pellegrino Matarazzo is a Bundesliga specialist, not an international specialist. But we come across coaches who didn't play for the countries but have made a living out of doing really well coaching other countries and understanding other cultures. And I've always said that the job of international coach or national team coach is a job for a pragmatist. It's not a job for somebody who wants to impose a philosophy on a team, because how can you do that when you genuinely don't know what your squad is going to look like? You can't sign players to suit that style. You're more or less left to pick who's there, who's available to you. So it has to be somebody who is pragmatic, who can take a group of players together and say, go around, we have to play this way because these are the players that we have.